You're listening to Best Forevers, a podcast for kindred spirits, a podcast that encourages you to love more on your friends and to further consider the issues that plague friendships. I'm Alysa Lucas, and I've felt lonely. According to Cigna's 2018 U.S. Loneliness Index indicates that I'm not alone in the feelings of loneliness. In fact, 46% of Americans report feeling lonely sometimes or always, and 47% felt left out sometimes or always. There are a lot of reasons why we can experience loneliness, but sometimes we see the solution as making friends, right? If we have more friends, we'll feel less lonely. But what is it like to make friends when you are feeling lonely? In today's episode, we'll talk about what it means to be desperate to find friends, how desperation and clinginess can cause difficulties when making friends, and how we can go about making friends in a better way when feeling lonely, needy, and desperate. Because here's the thing, how many times have you heard me say in this podcast, A, we all have the inherent need to be included and accepted, and B, we all deserve to be happy, healthy, and safe. Friendships may fulfill these needs, but it is competency and skills about how to make friendship that might make the difference if either A or B can happen. So to feel included and accepted and to feel happy, healthy, and safe might all come down to how we make friends. Before succumbing to feelings of loneliness and then perhaps participating in behaviors that are desperate, and that's not helpful to decreasing loneliness at all, it may be useful to understand where loneliness comes from. In the introduction, I cited the Cigna 2018 U.S. Loneliness Index, which you can find in the show notes. And this report used information collected through UCLA's loneliness scale. The scale has 20 questions that you fill out, and then it determines, your level of loneliness. And such items on the scale include, I am unhappy doing so many things alone. I have nobody to talk to. I feel left out. It is difficult for me to make friends. I am unable to reach out and communicate with those around me. The scale is also in show notes and may provide a description of how we currently feel and provide a starting point to reflect on our feelings of loneliness. But again, people can feel lonely for lots of different reasons. For example, in a previous episode called FOMO, we talked about the fear of missing out. So there's that social media effect where we can see all these things that people are doing and seeing them spending time with other people, and we can feel like we don't measure up. And so that can make us feel even lonelier if there are people getting together and we're sitting at home watching them get together through our phone screen. The second one is moving somewhere new and not knowing people yet. So you can move to a completely new area and feel like you don't know anyone and they don't know you, and there can be feelings of loneliness there. And that might be temporary as you become acclimated to your new surroundings and getting to know your neighbors, coworkers, and other people, maybe even the person sitting next to you in yoga class that you started taking in this new place. Sometimes we can feel isolated because of health reasons. So if you're going through some major health concerns right now, when you have a lot of time that's spent in the hospital or at home, and even a cold or the flu that keeps you away from people for a week can make you feel disconnected and isolated from other people. When you're a new parent, you have a new job, your attention is on the new baby, you're on the other new baby, which is the job. And so when you're focused only on one thing, then you might start to see that other areas are lacking, and then you might experience more loneliness. The fifth one is we can feel like people just don't understand us. So we can be surrounded by people, but if they don't understand where we're coming from, we're looking for those people or that person who can look at us and we can feel seen. Some people might be afraid to be alone, so they might be with people all day and then have that fear all night, waiting until they can connect with people the next day. You could be going through a tough time, so you might be feeling a little bit more sensitive overall, and then that can make you start to feel like you're even lonelier because there aren't people who might be able to help you through this tough time. You can feel like you don't have enough friends, so you might have friends, but you wish you had more. So in this case, it might be more about quantity than quality. And some people might feel lonely because they're not satisfied with the amount of time that they spend with their friends. So they can feel lonely because their friend only wants to spend this much time with them and they like to spend a whole lot more. So those are just some of the ways in which people might feel lonely. Those are 9 ways or 9 reasons. And there are a lot of other reasons that I'm sure people are experiencing. And the thing about it is, it's not one person experiencing. There's lots of people who are experiencing these things, these reasons for being lonely. And just like the research would suggest, that we're not alone in feeling lonely. But let's be clear, like Kelly Clarkson sang in her song Stronger, doesn't mean I'm lonely when I'm alone. In fact, we can feel lonely in our relationships. And that, I think, goes back to the reason that I talked about, where we just don't feel understood by people. So, however we see a solution to loneliness being in a romantic relationship or having lots of friends, but sometimes even when we make those friends or have that relationship, we can still feel lonely. And so a lot of times we might have to separate why we're feeling lonely and think about our relationships. But overall, we know that making friends is already difficult to do, as I've talked about with my friend Margot in episode 8 and throughout other episodes of this podcast. But feelings of loneliness may contribute to finding friends at all costs, by any means necessary. Any way I can make friends, that's what I'm going to do. Thus, we need to talk about the impact desperation can have on making friends, and also our feelings about ourselves and our experiences of loneliness. When we are desperately trying to make friends, we want to make friends so bad that our decision making may be off, which can be viewed negatively by those we're trying to be friends with. So it's one of those things, like, I think we've all been there where someone appears to be trying too hard, and it appears like desperation, and we can smell it a mile away. Like, it doesn't matter what they do, you can sort of sense that desperation. And so that's one of the things that's really difficult, is because if for that person, we're just trying to make friends so bad, we might not even realize that sort of communicating that desperation turns people off. And so it's actually going to be more difficult to make friends if we are desperately looking for friends. It's always when you're looking for the thing you need, that's probably not the time to do it, right? I mean, even if we go with something as simple as, I can't find my keys, and you search from top to bottom in the house, you're pulling things apart, you're getting upset, you need to go to work, it's like, you're crying, you find some other way to get to work, you're not thinking about it, and later you're like, oh, here they are, right where I left them in the fridge. So, who knows why people leave things in the fridge? I think we're thinking about other things. But I think that's the case, is sometimes when we're looking for the thing, it makes it even harder to find it because we're blinded and things are blurred and we're upset. Versus if we're not thinking about it, it's like, oh, there they are. Oh, they're the friends. There they are, right? And so I think that's one of the things that we have to consider, is that when we're trying to make friends so badly that our decision making then becomes questionable, and because we're blinded and blurred, right? So, but if we're doing almost anything to get friends, then we are going to turn to rash and extreme behavior, which is desperation. So I found this quote online. It says, quote, desperation tends to make one sort of flexible, end quote. And I think that it takes into account what we want. When we want something so badly, we'll no longer be ourselves in a couple different ways. Like, it becomes like who we are as a person doesn't matter anymore because we are run over by desperation. And so desperation makes us a little more loosey-goosey on our standards and the decisions that we make and all sorts of things. So here are a couple of ways in which, we might no longer be ourselves. So our standards may be blurred, and we might allow people to be our friends, or we're going to be friends with someone who treat us poorly, or just, it doesn't necessarily feel right, but it's like, but I have a friend, and it's like, oh, maybe we just need to get to know each other better to sort of click here. But if they're treating you poorly, or you're not having a good time, then, it's one of those things like, if you're not having fun with this person, then why would you want to be friends? And don't forget that friendship is one of the main relationships that's voluntary. We get to decide who we're friends with. And if it's someone that we're not having a good time with, we don't need to force it. And so I think that's one of the things, is that desperation or feelings of loneliness might make us feel like we have to be friends with those people. And we don't, because what can end up happening is we start to lose ourselves, and we might end up being more like them because we're trying to fit in so that they'll accept us. Spending time with these people might indicate that, or our definition of what a good friend may change. And then we might continually accept these quote unquote bad friends into our lives. And those quote-unquote bad friends can contribute to the erosion of self-esteem. And so if we're not feeling good, if we're not feeling confident, which I would imagine a lot of people, their friends are their hype people, right? You get them hyped up, they feel good about themselves, right? Friends often can contribute to self-esteem. But if there's anyone who's contributing to the erosion of your self-esteem, or you're getting to the point where it's like, well, this is what I deserve, then that is like, this is not a good situation to be in. And it might be that desperation to find friends is the first step we take on the path to blurring our standards, to changing who we are, to changing our definition of friendship, and allowing these people to erode any confidence that we might have in ourselves and our relationships. So one of the things might be, what are some of those behaviors that might be perceived as desperate by other people? And so I gathered this list by Chelsea Lynn from bold.com, and that's BOLDE. And so here's some of the things that might come across as problematic, or it might turn people off if you're trying to make friends with them, or if it's a new friendship. The first one is double texting, and that means that you're texting them again before they have a chance to respond. So it's one of those things like, text someone, allow them to respond. You don't need to send multiple messages. It's sort of like, this is, patience is a virtue in a sense. And if they get bombarded with text messages, or you open your phone and you have all these messages and no chance to respond, that is not something that people think of fondly. They might see it as annoying, right? The second one is claiming something is wrong with your phone, or trying to see if there's something wrong with their phone. Hey, my phone's been being weird lately, and I think my text message didn't go through. Did you get my text message? Again, it's let them respond as needed. Another behavior that might be perceived as desperate is being too interested in them. So like being too interested and learning about them, too interested in everything that's going on. It just comes across as trying too hard. The fourth one is buying gifts or spending too much money when everything is new. So it's, you've been friends for a couple weeks and you buy them something that is extremely expensive that you might not even get from a friend, like on a big birthday, or, for a wedding, those sorts of things, or it's just like you're constantly paying for things as a way to maintain the friendship, then that can be problematic. Doing research on your friend and then repeating the information, and there's quotes around research. So it might be like checking them out on Instagram and then being like, so on Instagram, I see that you and your dog went for a walk today, those sorts of things. It's like, you can just like the post and move on if you're Insta friends, right? Being too upfront is another way that people might communicate desperation, and that is giving too much information. And so one of the things I like to do in a future episode is talk about self-disclosure and how we share in friendships, and what is usually the path that people take, what factors might impact that. But generally, sharing everything all at once is overwhelming. And so it's like, I think the article said, like, being like, oh, do you like Thai food? And you could just be like, no. But then to go on and be like, no, it gives me gas, and then I'm like sick for like a week. Like, whoa, that might be too much information, right? And that might be something that you tell a friend, like, oh, do you want to get Thai food? No. Do you want me to have gas for a month? No, thanks. That might be something that comes later in the friendship. The next behavior that might be seen as desperate is surprising them literally anywhere. Showing up at work, seeing that they're somewhere on Instagram and then showing up there as well. Typically surprising people with an intention of surprising them because they're going to be there early on can be too much for people. And so if you naturally run into people, that's fine. But if you're setting it up to run into people and you've been friends for a week, that might be seen as desperate by other people, specifically the individual you're trying to be friends with. The next behavior that may be seen as desperate is always being available to hang out. Like, oh, I'm not doing anything. What are you doing? No, I'm not doing anything. Yeah, you want to hang? I'm not doing anything. It might just be like, make plans to hang with this person and then figure out other ways in which to utilize your time. And so there might be other ways to keep yourself active and looking for friendship without being available 24/7, because if you're available all that time and then you only spend a half hour at coffee, that can feel like not enough time, and then that might turn to some other desperate behaviors. The next one is making plans more than a week in advance. So it's like, oh, 7 months from now, do you want to go to this thing? I've known you for a day. I don't know if we will make it to this thing in 7 months, right? And then the 10th one I've adapted quite a bit. It says making friends or making comments about their other friends. So you never want to talk about the people in their life negatively as a way to sort of try to move yourself in there. And the reason why that last one was adapted is because Chelsea Lynn's list is about romantic relationships, right? It's about the behaviors that we participate in when we like someone or there's someone new, like double texting, being too interested, buying gifts, doing research, being too upfront. But I think the thing about it is I didn't say anything about it until now because I think it's applicable to friendship, right? That the last one I was making comments about ex-girlfriends or boyfriends, right? But I still think that can be applied with the adaptation. And I think that we are constantly looking for people to have in our life, right? And so the list refers to people coming across desperate AF when dating someone new, but obviously all these behaviors can be applied to friendship. And maybe that's the mistake that we make when trying to make friends, is assuming that it should be or will be easier than finding someone to date. That I think we might feel more entitled to friends than we do romantic partner. Like we might be like, oh, it's really hard to find someone, but we should all have friends. And I think we should all have friends, but that doesn't mean we're entitled to anyone or that it should be easier or that just because I've paid attention to you, that automatically makes you my friend. Like there has to be a shift in how we think about friendship, and that it might be just as difficult then to find a romantic partner, especially as you get older. And other people, we've made our friends, we've had these friends for years, that it might be harder to find someone when we're in our 30s or 40s, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's impossible. But we do have to think about it as this isn't just going to be like, hey, we're in the same space. Do we just become best friends? Now, if you meet someone and you have something in common, that's great. But we shouldn't assume that we should automatically be friends with everyone or that it's going to be really easy. And I think that's one of the myths about friendship, is that it's something just easy and expected and it's always going to be there. And we need to work harder at maintaining our friendships. We have to work harder at making our friendships. And so I think by taking Chelsea Lynn's list and applying it to friendship, I think we can see some of the parallels between looking for partners and looking for friends. So listen, it's all difficult though. Dating, finding friends, especially with so much of it happening online now, and you're not sure if someone is like, is that actually a picture of them? What are they like? How many people are they talking to? There's so many things to worry about. But I think that we do give advice to people when dating and they're having difficulty that might be relevant to friends too. So when I talked about the keys, once you stop focusing on it, you find someone, right? How many of you who've been looking for a romantic partner have gotten advice from someone? Well, just stop looking so hard and he'll just show up. And you're like, okay, that might be the case with friends too. Right? Or how many of you have heard this before? There's plenty of fish in the sea. And like, it's such a common piece of advice, or a phrase that there's a dating app based on it, plenty of fish, right? And so one of the things is that, we might expect, because this person and I are similar in age and we are in the same space together, that we must be best friends. But the thing is, if it doesn't work out, there shouldn't be some expectation that you have to be friends with this person, that you can find other people, and that it might not be that everyone is going to be good for you and you're not going to be good for everyone, and that there are lots of other people that you can be friends with. So don't settle, don't blur your standards, don't try to be like changing who you are to be like them and to be accepted. It is going, okay, this didn't work out. It was nice to meet you. All right. Where's the next situation I can put myself in to potentially meet more people? And so that leads into if they're not into you, that's their loss, right? And so We get that advice with romantic relationships, and so we have to be prepared for that same sort of rejection when making friends. And I think this is just great advice for friends seeking friends. Sometimes when we try too hard, people can smell it a mile away. Additionally, if a friend doesn't work out, there are more folks to meet, and I think those are just things that we need to remember. Meeting someone who could be a potential friend doesn't mean it'll work out. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. Because why would we want to be friends with someone who doesn't like us? If we continue to push it, then we're likely to find ourselves in a toxic friendship, which isn't going to help in fulfilling our basic human needs or decreasing our feelings of loneliness. So I say that if we're serious about making friends, we have to put in the effort like we might with dating. But either for friends or dating partners, seeking others when we're extremely lonely probably won't be so effective. Instead of focusing on making friends now, focus on the process and the progress of friendship. So there's a May 2019 article entitled, "Are You Desperate for Friends?" From liveabout.com, and it talks about progress being the key. Specifically, there are things we can do to prepare ourselves to make friends and be better friends. Like, for example, we can learn about one new thing a week. So what are some of the things you're into? What are some things that a lot of people seem to be into that you don't know a lot about? What seems to be trending? You can learn about something, and that might be one way to remain active in thinking about how you might be able to interact with other people, right? Because if you learn about those things, then what it's going to do is going to help you have conversations with people. The second thing you can do is attend an outing. So there might be different events in the area. I know, for example, Mount Pleasant recently had a beer festival. There might be other events in surrounding areas. In the last couple months, East Lansing had their art festival. There might be concerts. There might be get-togethers for groups. There might be outdoor workout classes. There might be running classes. There's lots of different things, but it might be attending one of those things and putting yourself out there, and that might increase the likelihood that you'll meet other people, and you'll meet other people that you have something in common with, and then you can talk to them about that thing you learned, right? Another thing you can do is hang out at a coffee shop. So if you're working on something, let's say you have a blog, maybe a podcast, or you're writing, or you're taking classes, you can go and do work at a coffee shop, and that means you're much more accessible in the sense of people see you, you see other people, you might be able to meet people. If you go to the same place every Sunday, you might be seeing the same crowd, having interactions that might lead to going on an outing together and having conversations. So truly it's about being active, and these type of things are more likely to encourage the interaction with other people, or once you're in interaction, they can help you make that conversation with another person. So it could be, I see you at this coffee shop every week. What are you working on? And I used to go to Ponder Coffee Shop during the school year pretty much every Sunday to work on the podcast. And I would see students and other people there, or they would have like Sunday brunch with their partner. And I was always just interacting. And so it could be like, oh, hey, it's cool to see you. And I'm glad to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. We should get together. Yeah, let's make a plan. And then we made a plan right there, right? Or you meet new people and maybe you find out what other people are doing. And so I think that becomes something that allows you to have interaction, and it builds up to it. So it isn't something like where you're going to have immediate resolution to having friends. And so that's the thing, is I think that when we're lonely, we want it immediately. But the problem is that if we do that, we might turn other people off. So if we think about something more active, that might actually help decrease feelings of loneliness. It might put a focus on some of the things that we're interested in. Like maybe we weren't going to coffee shops before, and now that we're going there, instead of reading, it's like, oh, I read, this many books a week. Maybe I should start a book blog or something like that. And you start writing that. You start sharing it with people. People talk to you about it. You find out there's other book bloggers. You make friends that way. I mean, it's one of those things like you can start to figure out what are some of the things that make you happy, and you're focusing on you, and then that allows you to be active and accessible to other people, and that's more likely to lead to friendship. So a blog entry by Christine Livingston on thetinybuddha.com talks about how to go about making friends without focusing on loneliness. So she talks about on this particular webpage about creating time and space for connection. And so that might be, I'm going to be at the coffee shop for three hours on this day. And that is creating time and space, or it's, I'm going to dedicate 2 hours a week to going out and doing something. So 1 hour is yoga. The other hour is going to some event in town that is being held, right? It's creating that time and space for you to interact with other people. The next thing Christine talks about is becoming your own best friend first. And I know some people are like, that is so played out. You got to love yourself before other people will love you. But here's the thing. Maybe it's played out because there's some truth to it, in the sense of if we are focused on ourselves and on our self-esteem and doing the things that we're interested in, that really builds up some confidence into going and being active and accessible around other people. And then we might see that loneliness is, we have to see that loneliness is separate than whether or not we're worthy. We are worthy, and that is that everyone deserves to be happy, healthy, and safe, right? But then the other part of it is, how are we going about making friends? And so if we've got the self part down, then we can focus on being effective in making friends. So even though it seems played out, let's be friends with ourselves, right? Because, some of the things from the UCLA loneliness scale was like, I don't like being alone at all. And so if we start to do things by ourselves that we might feel comfortable in that space, whether it be at home or, for example, I go to see movies by myself all the time, and I know there's people who would never do that. Well, here's the thing. I don't go at 7 o'clock on Saturday night when it's like date night, and I'm like sitting there by myself like, hey, cool, you guys on a first date or like the third? Like, no, I don't need to be there on date night. But I'm not going to avoid seeing movies because I don't have anyone to go with. And sometimes it's like, I just don't want to wait for people, right? It's like, I want to see this movie now. And I don't work on Fridays, for example, but you do. So I'm going to see it at 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock, right? But maybe it's trying to do some of those things by ourselves. And again, it's not going to a restaurant that is a fancy sit-down restaurant. It might be by starting out going to Panera and taking a book with you and reading and eating. You might start to feel like you can do these things on your own. And if you're okay doing these things on your own, then that might decrease some of the feelings of loneliness as you are doing the process and progressing through being active for friendship. Okay, the third thing that Christine talks about in her blog post is not waiting for others to reach out to you. So I think that's one of the things that can be problematic and can make us feel lonely, or it's like, well, I wasn't invited to do that, or, no one invites me to do anything. And then the question becomes, well, have you invited anyone to do something, right? And so this isn't something where we just sit back and wait for it to happen to us. Some of that we have to go out and do it ourselves. And so that leads to the fourth point, which is learning about rejection, right? And that, like dating, there might be rejection where there might be people who cancel, or it just doesn't work out, or they ghost you or something like that because they don't want to make you feel bad that they're don't want to be friends with you. And that's the thing is, like, I mean, a lot of times it's going to be them and not you, right? Like maybe they're like, I find them to be this way, but that doesn't mean everyone will find you to be that way. Or maybe it's like, oh, I thought I was going to have time for friends outside of the friends I already have, but I don't. Or like the thing about it is it has nothing to do with you per se. It has everything to do with the other person. But then one of the things would be keep going, right? That it's not letting that one rejection be like, well, that's it. I'm never going online again. I mean, the dating sites maybe, but not for friends, folks. The dating sites are scary. Okay, I'm joking, but also kind of serious, and we can talk about that at another time. The last thing that Christine talks about is that there is a social media effect, and so that is likely to make us feel worse. So if you are experiencing a night of, where you are feeling lonely, then it might be like, let's not go online. Going online is going to make me feel worse. It's going to make me feel lonelier. It's going to make me feel like no one likes me. And really the thing about it is, people post from they're only from their point of view typically. It's what they're thinking about, it's what they're doing. And a lot of times people don't even think when they're doing those sorts of things. They're watching television, they're not going anywhere and doing anything. They are more likely to post on social media than maybe to text back. I mean, I think we all kind of do that sometimes where we do want some time by ourselves and we don't want interaction. And so it might seem like, oh, well, they're rejecting me. And it's like, no, they probably are just like not texting, but just scrolling through social media and hitting like here or there. And so that is something to consider. And again, there is an episode called FOMO where I talk about that, and that might be worth checking out for the first time or for multiple times. I think those are good reminders of that we need to consider what sort of judgments we're making about ourselves and about other people when we're online, because most likely it's probably not the truth, it's not real, and we are making bad decisions. It might go back to that desperation leads to bad decisions. I think the problem is if we're not patient and we're not okay with ourselves, then that is when desperation can be picked up by other people. Even if we do our best to absolutely hide it, stuff it inside, and like, I'm so excited to meet friends. Like, it just like bursts through and people are just like, you're trying to make friends right now, aren't you? You're really looking for a friend. We can sense those things. Amy Sudgy, in an April 2018 Guardian article, indicates that, quote, the basis of making friends is a shared experience, end quote. So like discussed previously, putting ourselves out there actively encourages us to have shared experiences with others, but we should not expect anything from them. So although there are things that we can do, right? Christina's given us some steps about making friendships without focusing on loneliness. And now it's like, let's go back to the basics. Making friends is based on having some things in common, similarities, shared experiences. But again, friends are not something that should be easy or it's expected and we take for granted. We should not expect anything. I think sometimes people view friendships as a given and something easy to come to everyone, but that's not the case. In friendships, we can be rejected. People may not be into us, so we have to be prepared for that. According to Succeed Socially webpage, there are two areas, including one, people who are interested, but perhaps could go about making friends in a better way, and two, people who are not interested in us. So two is really easy. Cool. Nice to meet you. You don't like me. There's other fish in the sea. Goodbye. But if we're talking about the first one, this is the case and it comes down to the skill or competency in making friends, which is something we could focus on improving. So they are interested, but maybe we're just not going about it in a way that is helpful to us. Maybe there are things that are getting in the way. So the article by Chris McLeod suggests that lonelier folks make mistakes, and how about making friends? And that they may view friendships differently. And so these are some of the things to consider, according to Chris, which I do appreciate the author's focus on this being a skill. And so these are things like, let's work on them, let's focus on them, let's think about them, let's do something. And so the first one Chris talks about is that you never talk to people and you expect them to come to you. We've already mentioned this before. So you can't just assume everything is going to happen to you and that then there's something wrong with you because people aren't asking you. Well, you might be closed off. It might not seem like a possibility, or that you're never showing interest in people because you never talk to them and you expect them only to come to you. So that is something that we can go, okay, if that's something I do, let's work on it. And I will talk to people and expect that this is a give and take. The second one he talks about is you just greet people and chat to them, but expect them to take it from there. So you might be able to get into those conversations, but then you're waiting for them to ask you out, right? And I think historically, when we think about dating in a heterosexual normative world, that, women are waiting around for men to ask them out. And if I did that, I probably wouldn't have had a date or a prom date in high school at all. In fact, I asked both of my prom dates, junior and senior year, to prom, right? So I could talk to them, but, they're not going to be like, oh, hey, now that you're talking to me, that makes me really remember that I wanted to ask you to prom. No, I did it. It's truly the 2 times that I really made something happen. I'm pretty proud of myself. But the idea here is that you can talk to people, but sometimes you might have to take it from there. Oh, I've really enjoyed chatting with you at this party. Are you interested in getting coffee sometime? We can continue this conversation, right? The third thing Chris talks about is that you have conversations with the people you see around, but you still expect them to invite you out. So I think, again, that builds off of the third one, and my prom example fits there actually better, but that's fine. So again, let's not put all the responsibility on other people. There are things that we need to do if we're looking for friends. We can be active about it. We can take some of the risk. We don't have to put all the pressure and responsibility on other people, especially since they might not be looking for friends like we are. So we need to put in that work. The fourth thing Chris talks about is that you think you just have to perform some certain social moves, and then everyone will instantly want to be friends with you. So if you're into this thing, or you show up at this one event, or you have this one joke that you share that's like going to be friendship gold, and it's going to be like, everyone's going to be like, oh my God, you are the friend I've been waiting for, right? So it might be beyond that, right? It's not just like if you do this one thing, then everyone's going to want to be friends. You could do that one thing, and one person might be like, yeah, I want to be friends with you. And other people could be like, I'm going to need more than that one move, right? You can't go to a dance and have one dance move. I mean, you can, but it's not going to get you very far. You need to have multiple dance moves. Right? If you only have one, that's only going to attract one person. Okay. The fifth thing Chris talks about is people invited you out a few times, so that shows that they were interested in having you interact with them and do things with them, but then you didn't accept. And so, sometimes things happen, like you're busy one time, or you had to cancel because you weren't up for it. But if you cancel a whole bunch, they're not going to continue to invite you out. And so one of the things might be, well, I had to cancel because or I wasn't able to accept because I had this wedding I had to go to, and then I was sick, but let's go out now, right? So if you've been invited and didn't accept and you want to be friends with those people, then you need to do the inviting. The next one is you aren't the best at making plans with people. So, and this particular article had a link to another blog post about making plans, and that made me go, do people need to hear about these types of things? And I think the answer is yes, because it might be something that seems so easy. To make a plan, you do this. But then if you don't have like concrete examples or what you should do to make those plans, then that can make it an awkward situation for you. And then you never really know. Have you ever done that before, where you're trying to make plans with someone and they're like, great, so I'll give you a call. So it's like, wait, so are we doing that or are we not doing that? So is that a yes? Is that a no? Right? So if you have some difficulty making concrete plans, then there might be some things you can do, like, hey, like texting, like, hey, we talked on Saturday when we saw each other at the coffee shop about going to see a movie. What about this day? And then that might make it more concrete about whether or not you're making plans, and that can be helpful to moving into doing things together. Chris then talks about you're too quick to give up after the first setback, which goes back to we have to be prepared for that rejection, right? And so that just because one person said no doesn't mean that everyone's going to say no, or maybe they had to say no to that date and another date would work, right? And then finally, he talks about other people aren't interested in being friends with you. And that goes to point 2, right? They're just not interested. And so that's fine, right? It's like, it might hurt a little bit of an ego hit, but then it's like, okay, well, it's good to know, rather than be in a friendship with someone who doesn't like you or respect you, and you're forcing it for whatever reasons, so that you can feel that you're not lonely. But what I would imagine is if you're in a friendship like that, even if you have a friend, you call them a friend, that you might not feel like they get you, they understand you, you can feel disconnected, lonely, isolated, etc. So understanding how to make friends in a better way may help people avoid desperation, clinginess, and neediness. For example, stay away from things like making people feel guilty for not hanging out enough. Stay away from assuming you'll always be included in other people's plans, because with friendship, people have multiple friends and they might be different groups, different situations. And so you might not be invited to everything, and it's not their job to invite you to everything. You can also make plans of your own. Stay away from repeatedly calling or texting them until you get a response back. Stay away from getting agitated if they don't respond. Stay away from acting possessive. And stay away from trying to be like them through mimicking them and being into the things that they're into. A lot of times, we're trying to find who our people are, but if we're just changing who we are to fit into that group, then we're never going to truly find the people that understand us and love us for who we are. A Huffington Post article written by Barbara Greenberg in 2014 talks about how these behaviors communicate clinginess and how boundaries are needed. So if you're afraid to lose a friendship, you may become clingy. And a May 2019 liveabout.com article is stated, quote, when both people feel safe in the friendship, meaning that they enjoy the amount of togetherness and alone time they have, they will be more authentic and act like themselves, freely comfortable with their true personality, and therefore able to give and receive as equal individuals, end quote. But imbalance leads to clinginess, and certainly if you're wanting to spend 24/7 with them, you may need to reflect further on yourself and see someone for assistance like a therapist, because there might be other reasons why you might be feeling the loneliness, your fear of being alone, not being satisfied with the amount of time that someone is able to give you, and they might be able to help you work through those concerns. So what to do then? The Huffington Post article provides some behaviors to avoid, as I just described, and I was looking through a WikiHow that discusses more about how to go through these situations, but they did it through, as you might imagine, a romantic lens. So we can totally apply this to friendship, though. So the first thing is, they say, avoid constantly complaining about your single status. So that's for looking for a romantic partner. So looking for friends, I would then say this applies in the sense of avoiding constantly complaining that you don't have friends, doing that online, doing that face-to-face, complaining about friends, things like that. Because if you're doing those things and you're looking for friends, I think people are going to be turned off by the negativity, and that if you're complaining about friends or not having friends or not having good friends, that you might do the same if they don't meet up to your standards. Some other things that they talk about when avoiding the constant complaining is not fishing for compliments as you're trying to seek friends, trying to avoid trying too hard. You don't want to try to overplease people and just please them. It's about you as well, and you don't want to move too fast because that can be something that can put people off. And so those are some of the things that they talk about with first avoiding desperate behavior, right? And the second thing that you can do is learn to let go. And so some of the things might be walking away or not, watching people online through their Instagram and avoiding clingy behavior. So it might be one of those things like if it doesn't work out in terms of the friendship or trying to make friends with these individual people, it's learning to let go. And then finally, it's their other method is projecting a confident self-image. And so, this is one of the things that desperation makes you loosey-goosey. So it's maintaining personal standards. What kind of friends are you looking for? It's not just to say you have friends, but it's friends to fulfill needs and that you can fulfill needs for other people, right? So maybe writing down what you think a good friend is, what you're looking for in a friend, what kind of friend you want to be to other people, and then sticking to that. Then, it's almost a case like, would you rather be in a friendship where it's violates your personal standards, or would you rather be alone, right? And so I think some people might rather be with the people, but that will lead you down a path perhaps to some toxic friendships versus being more active and waiting for individuals that do meet your standards. It's being sure not to rationalize bad treatment. So if those friends are treating you poorly, then that is something that is going to impact your self-image. And so in that case, you want to snip that right out of your life. Another thing that can happen that can impact your self-image is comparing yourself to others. And one of my former students, Meredith, she would always say this in classes, and then she gave this to me as a gift for graduation. And it says that comparison is the thief of joy. And so I think, oh God, it's a great quote. and it's a good reminder, is that there are things that we all have going for us, but then when we compare ourselves to other people, then it cuts ourselves down. And so instead of comparing ourselves to other people, it could be, this is what I'm looking for in a friend, or this is what I want, and then this is me putting myself active into a situation so I can make that happen. And then do your best to, and I realize as we talk about loneliness and trying to make friends, that the last part of projecting a confident self-image is surrounding yourself with positive people. And you might be, but that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to find those positive people. So maybe that isn't necessarily friends per se. Maybe it's coworkers. Maybe it's a partner. Maybe it's your family members. Maybe it's friends online. And I think sometimes we forget that we make really strong friendships online. And yeah, you might not be able to do things face to face, but they provide a really strong foundation for you to have someone to go to. And those are the people you might want to keep yourself around, right? So although WikiHow might be like, this seems like okay, I do think that it applies to friendship, and they do provide some advice that we can apply to our lives. So one of the things, I found this other quote. It says, loneliness is a sign you are in desperate need of yourself, by Rupi Kaur. And so feelings of loneliness can make us feel a certain type of way. Between FOMO, the fear of missing out, and being down on ourselves, trying to make friends at all costs is likely to hurt and hinder us when it comes to making friends. So no, we're not alone when it comes to feeling isolated and left out, but it might help us to get out of that by being active and focusing on progress instead of making friends immediately, where neediness and desperation may rear its ugly head. So we can stay away from patterns that may keep us stuck in one spot, as suggested by the Succeed Socially article about loneliness. So these are some of the patterns that we might just find ourselves super comfy with. Like, let's stay here forever, but let's not, right? So we might be ashamed of loneliness and try to hide it. So that might mean embellishing online, talking about things that didn't happen, or we exaggerate the things that did happen. We are more insecure, anxious, and sensitive to perceived failure and rejection. We become pessimistic and prone to giving up too quickly. Well, see, this person, I told you people weren't interested in me, and so this person, of course, rejected me too. And it's, we might be prone to blaming the people or giving up, and when those sorts of things might be, it's about them, it's not about us, or we might be looking for immediate friends instead of friends through the active process. We become negative and picky about other people, and so we can have those standards, right, of who we want our friends. But then when we have such high expectations that no one can ever meet them, then it is likely that we won't be able to make friends. And I think it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. We become a little too good at distracting ourselves from their loneliness. So it's like, I'm not lonely because I'm doing this, when really we might be experiencing that loneliness, and it might be something that we need to really work out. We become too comfortable in a social rut. So we focus on what we're doing and not what we might be able to do differently. We can glorify the less social side of our personality. And I think this is a really important point, that it's just one of those things, like when we are experiencing loneliness, we're trying to eliminate those feelings. So it's like, okay, well, reading these books or watching this TV show or talking to this person online doesn't make me feel lonely. And it just, y'all, I'm just introverted, or I'm just this, I'm just that. And it's just focusing only on that without ever getting out or trying to be active. And so I think there is a part of that. This is like a double-edged sword, because we might have to focus on the less social side while we work through some things. But by only focusing on our less social side, then we're never putting ourselves out there. We're never getting out there to make friends, right? So it's one of those things like, okay, on Saturday nights, I read at home, and you post about it on Instagram, and you're glorifying that less social side of your personality. Fine. But then on Sunday, I'd be like, I went to brunch to meet other people, and I went to brunch and carried on a conversation with someone else. So it's not eliminating our social side, right? We need to, even when we're feeling down and lonely, we need to find some way to even get outside or to go somewhere for even an hour and put ourselves in that active place. Okay? And then the final thing they talk about on this webpage is believing that If they're worthy and likable, enough other people will befriend them. You are worthy, but you don't have to force it. You don't have to make yourself likable through exaggeration or by taking on personas of other people. You are worthy, and that is separate. Your feelings of feeling worthy are separate from feelings of loneliness, right? And I'll talk about that in just a second. So we have to be ready to go about friends when we're ready, when we're good with ourselves, and when we can do so in an effective way. So I think we should be mindful of the negative talk and behaviors we may find ourselves participating in, which may contribute to us sticking in a rut and or behaving in desperate ways that make us feel even worse. Christine Livingston noted in her Tiny Buddha article, quote, "Loneliness is not a message about your worthiness," end quote. I was just talking about that. These are separate issues. We are worthy. We are worthy of happiness, health, safety, and friendships. So it might be about first tackling being your own best friend, and then second, being active and moving toward other friendship. And I feel very strongly about the impact of loneliness. In fact, the 2018 U.S. Loneliness Index stated, quote, "Loneliness has the same impact on mortality as smoking 15 cigarettes a day, more dangerous than obesity," end quote. So I'll be focusing on a number of topics related to loneliness so we can have it out in the open and discuss it freely and come up with concrete ways in which we can handle these feelings of loneliness and how they might be related to friendship. Additionally, I want to discuss more of the type of friends that can be problematic. For example, clinginess and desperation can be a problem, but so can folks like energy vampires, know-it-alls, envious folks, shallow folks that are also drama queens, and so much more. So let us work through the issues that make friendships difficult together. So until next time, consider potential feelings of loneliness and desperation in your life, because without ourselves as our friends first, who would we be? Thanks for listening to Best Forevers. If you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and of course, share with a friend. Please be sure to follow Best Forevers on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Best Forevers Pod, and I'm at Dr. Alysa Lucas on Twitter. You can always find the podcast webpage for more information at bestforeverspod.com, and share your stories of friendship by emailing me at bestforeverspod@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support the movement to love on our friends more, check out the podcast on patreon.com/bestforeverspod. Now, friends, check out this recommended podcast that you must get in your ear holes immediately.
Hey everyone, I'm Lily.
And I'm Britt, and we're the co-hosts of Lady Shit with Lily and Britt. We record out of a tiny little closet and talk about anything and everything related to being women today.
Did you know that fast fashion is the second most polluting industry in the world? Or that the femtech space might soon be worth $50 billion? Or that women who swear actually have large vocabularies?
Yeah, we talk good.
As doctoral students, we're occasionally smart, putting in a little bit of research into every topic we cover. But mostly, we're just ridiculous.
You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at ladyshit_pod.
And you can check us out on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, and Podbean. Oh, and when you're searching, make sure lady shit is one word.
And that you substitute the I for an exclamation mark.
New episodes come out every 3 weeks, which we know makes no sense, but clearly nothing we do does.